Oh, there we go. There you go. There you go, perfect. Hit this button.
I'd like to emphasize the fact that the league, as a team, reacted swiftly. They reacted appropriately, as they have in the past for other challenges. And I can't thank the league more for their professionality and the way they reacted to this comment. And just like Jenna said, I think it's going to, an episode like this could actually, forge a stronger bond between us and our brothers and sisters. So, and plus, no promises date-wise, but this hiccup shouldn't cost us many weeks. Hopefully, within a few.
Okay, then whenever you're ready, we can start it.
Right. Oh, I was just waiting. Yeah. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Cape Coral Youth Council. Today's date is February 14th. This meeting will now come to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Before I call the roll, members Cranford, Gorbanowski, Gwen, Orozco, Rowe, and Ziegler requested to be excused, and I will mark them so. Bradish,
Present.
Doherty,
Present.
Figueroa,
Present.
German,
Present.
Aiko,
Present.
Logan,
Present.
Russell,
Present.
Benitez,
Present.
8 present and 6 excused.
Thank you. First up, we have approval of the agenda or changes to the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, do we have a motion to adopt the agenda for the February 14th meeting as presented? Member Bradish?
I motion to approve the meeting minutes from January 24th, 2020.
Can I have a second? Second by Member Doherty. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
For clarification, the motion on the floor is to adopt the agenda or approve the minutes.
Adopt the agenda.
Okay. I will call the roll. Doherty,
Yes.
Figueroa,
Aye.
German,
Aye.
Aiko,
Aye.
Logan,
Aye.
Russell,
Aye.
Bradish,
Aye.
Benitez,
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you. Next up is approval of the minutes. The meeting minutes for the January 24th meeting were attached to your backup material and emailed to the council for review and consideration prior to the meeting. Can I have a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from the January 24th meeting as presented? Member Logan?
I motion to approve the minutes of the January 24th, 2020 meeting.
Can I have a second? Second by Member Figueroa. We will now take a voice poll vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Next up, advisor presentation. Advisors added a topic titled Upcoming Council Report. Therefore, I will now turn the floor over to Advisor Mazurkiewicz for any updates.
There is no meeting this Monday at City Council because of President's Day and no big issues on the immediate horizon.
Thank you, Advisor Mazurkiewicz. Moving on, citizens' input. This consists of input of citizens on matters concerning city government. 3 minutes per individual, and council will listen to all speakers and respond after all speakers have made their presentation. I will now read the Pledge of Civility. We will be respectful of each other even when we disagree. We will direct all comments to the issues, and we will avoid personal attacks. Citizens' input is now open. Members of the public, please come forward to the podium. Please state your name clearly for the record. Seeing none, citizens' input is now closed. Next up is business item 10A, the Hudson Creek Development Discussion. This is a continued discussion from previous meetings. Therefore, I will now hand the floor over to our presenter for discussion. Please state your name clearly for the record.
Okay, my name is Chad Boyko. I am a principal planner at the city's planning division. I have a presentation for you guys. You had mentioned that this was a continuation of a discussion from last time. Would they like I can provide the presentation that was given to council this previous Monday? Or is this?
The previous discussion was this is a big deal coming into the city and is something that it's so impactful in the future that they need to be brought abreast of it. So they've not seen.
They've not seen? Okay. Then you will get the same presentation that was given to the city council this previous Monday at a council hearing. This is a future land use map amendment. So this is a piece of property that's in the northern part of the city. It's pretty much as far north as you can get in the central area as you can go. It consists of around 1,200 acres. And this was annexed into the city roughly 12 years ago or so. And anytime you bring a property from Lee County into the city of Cape Coral, the future land use and then the zoning stay with Lee County until the municipality changes it or the applicant asks to change it to the city's future land use and zoning designation. So for this project, what we did was the applicant applied for a future land use amendment, and the first step is a transmittal hearing where it's heard by the city council, and then if they choose to transmit the amendment, then it goes up to the state of Florida for their review. The process used to be a lot longer. About 10 years ago or so, the review was much more detailed. Nowadays, it's sort of a formal, it's a cursory review that the state does, and then it comes back down to the city council for their final adoption. So this was an ordinance. It was 58-19. It was privately initiated. The applicant was a company going by the name of GA Pinnacle Cape Coral LLC. Like we mentioned, it's in the northwestern part of Cape Coral, north of Jacaranda Parkway and east of Burnt Store Road. The size of the site was 1,238 acres, and it's within our Urban Services Reserve area. Now what that means is the Urban Services designation is something that is outlined in our comprehensive plan, and there's 3 types of areas. There's infill, transition, and then reserve. Infill is the areas of the city that have utilities such as water, sewer, and irrigation, and they've had those utilities for many years. Transition are the areas that are either they've just recently received utilities or they have plans to be brought into the utility expansion area. For instance, what you see along Chiquita Boulevard and some of those northwestern areas. Now, those are transition areas where the utilities are currently being installed and put into the ground. Reserve is that there are not utilities and there are not any plans in the near future for those utilities to be brought into there. So that's a key point for this case, that it's within the reserve area of the urban services area because there are no utilities, and because it's so far north and away from all the other existing utilities, there's not a lot of plans in the future for them to go up there. You can see on the aerial, there isn't a lot on this site other than, it's undeveloped. There's nothing there. There's some trails, some ATV trails. It's lightly forested here and there, but there really isn't much going on in this area. Before you have a current future land use and then a current zoning map. You notice that it's gray. That's because it still retains the Lee County zoning and future land use for this. In all directions, you've got a mix of zoning and land use. You have some mixed use. You have some single-family residential. To the north is basically state preserved land owned by the state of Florida. you can see that it's largely undeveloped and very much preserved to the north of the site. They have asked for 3 future land use designations for the site. About 50 acres they've asked to take to single-family multifamily, which would allow both single-family homes and multifamily development. For just under 600 acres, they're looking to go to single-family future land use designation. And then for over 600 acres, they're asking to go to open space designation. As we mentioned earlier, the site was annexed or was brought into the city of Cape Coral from Lee County back in 2006 as part of a large annexation that was done by the Zimmel family. Zimmel family has owned property in Florida for about 100 years or so. Some of it has been developed and some of it hasn't. This land here was brought into Cape Coral and also some area that's within the northeast part of Cape Coral over a decade ago. It has Lee County future land use designations of open lands and wetlands. Both of those categories are basically what we call rural designations, where you don't allow a lot of development. They allow for a single family home basically on either 10 acres or 20 acres. So if you own a 10-acre piece of land, you can have one single family home, which is very not dense, very rural, not a lot of development there. That's the idea behind that, is to not impact services such as utilities or the wildlife and the wetlands that are nearby. And it has a zoning designation of agricultural. So there could have been some sort of agricultural operations on this before. Some of these properties, they did some forestry. They might have done some mining, not necessarily on this site, but that agricultural designation would allow for various activities, not commercial, not industrial, and not residential. We mentioned earlier that there's undeveloped preservation land to the north and to the east. You do have undeveloped land and single-family homes to the south and to the west. On the site, there was 3 protected species that were observed. They found traces of the gopher tortoise, the little blue heron, and then the tricolored heron. And then the topography of the site was a mixture of pine flatwoods, marshes, open lands, and wet prairies. And they did an environmental survey, and they found that approximately 700 acres of the site were hydric and likely contain wetlands. They say likely contain wetlands because anytime you have wetlands on site, you have to go to the South Florida Water Management District to get an official wetland determination. So they didn't do that, but they found that more than likely there were characteristics of wetlands that were on approximately 700 acres within this site. And we mentioned earlier that there was various trails present on the property, likely from ATV usage. We mentioned earlier that they are requesting a future land use map. They're doing this in order to develop a master planned community. The applicant owns, on the screen here, you can see the applicant owns quite a bit of land in this area. What they're trying to call this is Hudson Creek. They would incorporate both single family, multifamily, and then commercial within the development. On that plan that you see in front of you, the pink or the red area is about 250 acres that has frontage on Burnt Store Road, and that would be a commercial development. 250 acres would support something along the lines of an office park, grocery stores, large-scale retail development. You could have Target, you could have Walmarts, things like that. There's also another parcel that's owned by the Catholic Church that is in between some of the property owned by the applicant. That is currently within Lee County and will probably stay that way since the Catholic Church does not want to annex that property into Cape Coral, and that they would probably utilize that property for access between the sites. This part is the next. We analyze all future land use map amendment requests by our comprehensive plan. We have various chapters in there that deal with things such as utilities, road infrastructure, preservation of wildlife, parks, and one of the most important chapters we have is the future land use element, which kind of guides how development can be done within the city of Cape Coral. It defines what our future land use designations are. We analyzed this. We looked at it. The first designation that they were looking to put on this site was single family. It allows densities not to exceed 4.4 units per acre. That is your standard. You drive down to Cape Coral Street and you see a home, right next to each other. That's the 4.4 units per acre. And we looked at that in that if they had 571 acres, the maximum number of single-family homes they could develop is 2,500 single-family homes. And if they were to develop this site with single-family homes, they would either have to rezone this to a district that allowed for single-family homes, or do what we call a planned unit development, where they design their site, they tell us what they're going to put on there, they tell us what kind of buffers, their roads, their utilities, things like that. So this is just only the first step in any development that comes forward. The next designation that they did was a single-family and multifamily residential. Much like the name implies, you can do both single-family and multifamily. That's duplexes, apartments, condos, anything that is 3 or more units. And they had 53 acres that they were looking to place the SM designation on. And at 25 dwelling units per acre, they would be allowed a maximum of 1,330 multifamily units. And then once again, future development would either need a rezone or a planned unit development. And then the last designation they were looking for the site was open space. Open space is more or less a preservation style designation. It doesn't allow for homes, it doesn't allow for any commercial space, or any types of uses that would have a demand for public facilities such as water, sewer, irrigation, electric, things like that. What you can put into the open space designation is things like lakes, stormwater treatment areas, private recreation facilities, but nothing that is open to the public. We also looked at this according to our multifamily locational guidelines. We found that it meets 2 of the 4 of those guidelines. It does have some potential access from a major road, and it is a fairly large site, being that it's 52 acres. The next, it goes into, we talk about the utility connection. Because the site is so far north, not sure whose phone that is. Because the site is so far north, we mentioned that there aren't any utilities within the site. Anytime you're going to develop a development that is of this scale, we are looking for it to be serviced by water, sewer, and irrigation. Currently, water and sewer are not available there. If the developer wanted to develop the site, they would have to provide utility connection on their own dime. So they would be responsible for running water, sewer, irrigation lines from the nearest source within the city up to the site. And we'll go into the distance a little bit later on how much that would be. If the developer provides those utility connections, then they can qualify for the transition designation on their site. Mentioned earlier that the developer would be required to provide utilities, and that would be an extension of the urban services transition area. Staff looked at this and we found that the UEP is unlikely to reach the site in the near future. And we mentioned that once again, utilities may need to be provided by the developer. And the closest facility that has utility connection is the North Cape RO plant, and that's almost a mile away. And that is only water that they'd be able to provide from there. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they can just take a water line from that RO plant and run it up to the site, but that is the nearest plant that actually provides water or sewer, and this only provides water. We provide incentives for assemblage of land for multifamily. This is an aggregation of a site that's over 20 acres, so we would allow up to 16 dwelling units per acre within the urban service reserve area. And then lastly, we looked at whether or not this was considered sort of urban sprawl or a leapfrog development, and we found that there is some characteristics of leapfrog development on this site. We mentioned that there really isn't a lot going on nearby. There's a low amount of nearby residential. There's not your common facilities such as commercial or parks that are nearby. That being said, the developer never really provided a time frame for development, so we're not sure if perhaps if they wait 10, 15, 20 years to develop this, perhaps the surrounding area would be more developed and it wouldn't be such urban sprawl as it looks like it is now. The next chapter we looked at was the conservation and coastal management element. This really deals with protection of the environment and natural resources. We found that the development would be required to go through numerous agencies, whether they're state or federal, primarily because of the presence of wetlands that are on the site. The applicant did state that they would restore some natural flowways after disturbances from the exotic land, vegetation and the ATV usage that's been present on the site. Once again, there's numerous agencies such as the Army Corps, the South Florida Water Management District, Department of Environmental Protection, and Florida Fish and Wildlife that they would need to get permits from for future development. And then we require all applications for development of this size to submit a protected species survey. They did that with this, however, not knowing when they're going to develop, they would be required to do a new species survey to make sure that there weren't new species such as eagles or anything else moving into the site. We mentioned earlier that the site has a large amount of wetlands. Several hundred acres will be designated as open space. That being said, even though there's 600 acres going to open space, you could still have some disturbance of wetlands, and the developer would have to follow all guidelines in order to develop this. We did more analysis on the utility extension from the site. Then we looked at the recreation open space element. This deals with the parks that you see around the city of Cape Coral. We have a concurrency standard for park and recreational facilities. That is essentially saying that per the population that we have in Cape Coral, we should have so many parks, so many ball fields, and we found that currently the city as a whole is not concurrent due to a number of factors such as high rate of population growth that we've had in the past, low budget in order for these new facilities to be developed. We found that the recently passed GEO bond may help to alleviate that demand for the parks, and you might find that the concurrency would be more in line in the future going forward when this develops. Then we looked at the traffic impact for the site. We found that if this development sort of developed to its full potential, you would be looking to add around 2,168 peak hour trips in and out of the site, and then approximately 21,000 daily trips. All of the nearby roadways, they do meet a minimum level service of D, which sounds bad, but it really isn't. That just means that there is adequate capacity for the number of cars that are within the city of Cape Coral. However, if this were to develop, you would probably see that level of service D go down, so the applicant would probably need to either widen roads, provide extra turn lanes, or figure out different ways to move the traffic in and out of the site. And then the last thing we looked at was we talked about the funding of the lines that would have to be run to the site. There's a couple of ways that utility extension could be funded by the developer. You could do a pre-assessment to the affected property, so that means we would charge the developer up front however many millions of dollars it would be to run the lines to the site. You could do a utilities cash funded and then recovered through sort of a taxing mechanism. You could adjust the UEP schedule so that you included this site. That was probably a long shot because there's a lot of property that's in between the current utility area and then this site. And then lastly, it could be developer funded with tax and or impact fee concessions or abatements. Planning staff did our analysis. We recommended approval of this, and then we presented this to the City Council last Monday, and there was a unanimous vote by 8-0 to transmit this up to the state. So I know that was a lot of information, but if you have any questions, I am here for anything you may want to ask.
Thank you very much, first of all, for coming and attending and giving this presentation. I think all of us we had been pre-introduced to the topic, however, this really helped us with understanding in detail the development. I actually have one question. We talked about, it was mentioned that this was a preservation land and it includes 3 protected species. If this land was to be developed, what regulations are already put in place that would kind of buffer those environmental effects of that development?
There's a couple of different ways. Anytime that, so first of all, wetlands within Florida are protected by the Army Corps of Engineers and then the South Florida Water Management District. There are different types of wetlands that are out there. You can have wetlands that are in like a state preservation area that contain a number of protected species. You can have wetlands almost, not necessarily, but you have wetlands in your backyard that are considered non-pristine wetlands. So they may be a small area, they may be 1 or 2 acres. They're not really something that is, it's not a key to the environment where you're trying to have flowways that are being protected. You can just have isolated wetlands that really aren't doing much good of anything. However, those are still protected by the state and by the Army Corps of Engineers. For this, what you're seeing is because it has connection to existing pristine and preserved wetlands, you would have to do either protection with that open space designation, you'd have to probably buffer it through various means within the development by having setbacks from those wetland areas. And then also too, if they were gonna take any of the wetlands, they would do what they call mitigation. So they would fill in the wetlands, but there are what we call mitigation banks that are around Lee County and then the state, where there are large areas of protected land not developed, and then the developer pays into a fund, or they pay this mitigation bank to preserve extra areas of land. So it's sort of like you take 20 acres from your site that you want to develop, and then either you pay a certain amount or you preserve an extra 20 acres off-site somewhere. So there's sort of like a give and take within that. For this project, they haven't really got into how exactly they're going to protect the wetlands that are there, but you would see probably a combination of buffering the existing wetlands, and then whatever they do fill in or they take or they damage, they impact, they're going to have to buy mitigation credits for that.
Thank you. Is there any discussion from council members or advisors? Member Russell?
Hi, thank you for coming out again. I enjoyed it because it's very, sorry, I lost my train of thought. It's very relevant to what we will be, when we live here in the future, what we will be having access to. You said that this project, they don't know when they're going to start developing, correct?
Correct.
So in regards to that, the surrounding area you said isn't very developed, a few scattered houses here and there. And if you were to open up this area to have up to 2,500 homes, and that will bring in about, I think, 10,000 people is what we talked about last time. If that area, as well as the area that is underdeveloped right now, both become more developed, will the commercial area that you guys have set aside be able to sustain both of those areas?
Well, that's sort of the tricky part about Cape Coral altogether. We haven't really looked at the exact numbers on that, whether or not the commercial would support that. Right now, the whole Northwest is very underserved by commercial. If you look around, I think in the Northwest, you've got a couple of gas stations, a couple of Dollar Generals. So anybody that's living there now, and we've probably got 20,000 residents maybe in the Northwest and the Northeast, they're already having to drive to get things such as groceries, food, restaurants, essential services. If these two areas if this development was to, go in up there, you would see the lack of utilities hurts, but you would definitely see a interest in commercial, coming forward in that area. Right now we have the RV park that's going up on Burnt Store Road, and already that's going to bring in enough sort of semi-permanent population that you're seeing some other areas with interest in developing commercially to the north of that site, so that those residents have somewhere to go, so they're not driving 5 miles to the nearest grocery store, because it's really inefficient for 200, 300 people to have to drive that far to get things such as food, water, such and so forth. So it's a challenge. We would hope that we could get enough land in there to develop commercially that we could have a network of non-residential that would support there, but I mean, it's tricky. You never know, because you're limited by a lack of land, you're limited by access, and you're limited by utilities currently.
Member Aiko?
Okay, thank you for the presentation and explaining that to us. So obviously, having these new residential homes will bring in a lot more families to Cape Coral. And I know that previously there had been rumors about potentially building a new school within our area. And given that where that area is, it's definitely farther away from the schools that we have centralized around here. So would there be any sort of consideration to providing closer school for not only for the greater population that will be here, but also to be closer to them?
There could be. That's really a kind of a function of Lee County School District.
Oh.
That being said, when someone comes in for a future land use amendment for residential, we have to do an analysis with the Lee County School District. So either the developer or city staff will send a letter over to the school district and say, hey, they're looking at providing, so many homes, so many residents coming forward, and they have to provide us back a letter stating whether or not they have capacity within their schools to handle the population that may be introduced into the area by that development. For this project, that did occur. Lee County School District said that they had capacity within the existing school system for the high school and the middle school to support and accommodate the students that would be brought into the development. Elementary would be a little dicier. They would be a little underserved, but they mentioned that they would still be able to handle them one way or another. But I think you would probably see a need for another school, generated by this, because there really isn't. There's, I think, one elementary school in the northwest or the northeast, and then maybe 2 high schools and a middle school up there. So you'd probably definitely need some additional schooling capacity there.
Thank you.
All right. Is there any other discussion from council members, advisors?
Well, the reason why I wanted to bring this forward, and thanks, Chad, for presenting that presentation, is that this is future land use is truly in the future, and this is probably 5 to 10 years away,
If not more.
if not more. So you're looking at land uses, and you're trying to figure, and you're getting answers to questions, good questions that you asked, like will there be room for the cars on a road? Will there be a desk in the classrooms? And the answers are, based on what's there today, yes. But the problem is 5, 10, 15 years from now, the infill of the adjoining properties that are already platted and will probably have a step up or a step ahead for getting infrastructure, water, sewer, and irrigation first, is not that component, that delta, the change between what's there now and what's going to be there in 10, 15 years is not available, nor is it considered. It seems so nonsensical that you're trying to project future land use and impacts of that, and determining how you have available services, or if you'll have available services, without projecting even a straight line linear growth between today and 15 years, because staff can't, because they don't know if this literally, a developer could come in and within 5 years be totally built out of that area if they install all their internal utilities. So, while they use the best practices they have now, the best practices we have now are very flawed as to how to do it. The other thing is, there's the philosophical thought about the last thing we need within the municipal boundaries of Cape Coral is more single-family homes. We have a plethora of single-family homes. What we need is non-single-family homes, whether it's different housing opportunities that are not single-family homes, or non-residential, which is commercial, industrial, commerce, any kind of job. And this, I thought, was interesting on this site. The developer's vision is, we'll take the 250 acres adjacent to, 250 is it?
More or less, yeah.
Yeah, 250 adjacent to Burnstow Road, and we'll identify that for our non-residential, and we'll build our own rooftops adjacent to it to serve our own non-residential. That doesn't help us at all as a community in helping the unmet needs that exist out there already. Chad just told us that there's an immense unmet needs for the existing 20,000 plus people who live north of Pine Island Road. So this, in the developer's view, they're looking at what's good for them, how do they make their financial performance work. But the city has got to, balance that against what's good for the city as a whole. I wanted you to see this because this is big. This is probably the biggest land use change other than trying to
this is
figure the pre-platted lots. This is probably the biggest land use change we've ever seen from outside, right?
Yeah, it is the biggest sort of sole project land use amendment that we've had, and quite frankly, it's probably the last one we'll have. Even Lee County, they're not getting land use amendments this size. There really aren't pieces of land that are 1,200 acres that are out there anymore. Everything is much smaller, so this is the last big amendment we'll see going forward, probably in the near future.
So the reason I wanted to bring this to you is to say you guys have got to come up with solutions to this, because this is going to be your problem. I don't believe that the developer will be developed in 5 years. I don't believe, it's probably more 10 to 15, depending on utilities in the market, but because we'll probably have to go through another slowdown before this market gets built, this piece gets built. So however long that takes, if we repeat what happens in the 2008 syndrome, or we repeat what happened in the beginning of every decade for the 3 decades before, where it's only an 18-month slowdown, the last month slowdown was quite long. So we don't know. There's a whole bunch of things we don't know, but the city has got to respond responsibly to the application, both recognizing their public property rights, their private property rights, and the needs and the ability of the city to serve. So this is the biggest one I've ever seen since I've been doing this. And this is a big opportunity for the city to at least think about these things. No one ever talks about that stuff. No one ever mentions the fact that when you're looking at something, you review it based on current conditions, and the land use is 15 years in the future, and there's no consideration of what's going to happen to the existing already platted city in the next 15 years before this thing gets opened up. And what does that mean to us? I mean, and these are almost philosophical discussions, but they really have to happen at a policy-making level, because the professional planners only have available to them what the guidelines that are laid forth in the comp plan by the policymakers. I thought it would be an interesting experience for you to think about this big issue, because this is going to be your issue. It's definitely not going to be mine.
Or mine.
If I'm still in it when this is done, I've been way too long. So that was the reason why I wanted to bring it to you.
Mr. Williams?
Thank you, because it's perfect what we're doing here. Thank you, Chad, you did a great job. I just want to throw a little more into this. I'm kind of defending the council member from that district. He's kind of a picky guy.
It's him.
Let me relay a little bit of what the council did after that presentation and our discussion, and kind of the feelings that they had and the reasons for some of those feelings. As Mr. Mazurkowitz just mentioned, we have a plethora of unbuilt building sites in the city. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 40,000 is the last number that I heard. Do we need another 2,500? I don't know. We're very, very short of commercial business, commercial space, which bring the jobs that's going to support the people moving here. And it helps with the taxes and will reduce the residents' taxes somewhat, depending on what we get in to help with. We're already behind the 8 ball commercially for a few reasons. First, we don't have a good transportation network in Cape Coral. We don't have an airport. We don't have a train station, truck terminals. We don't have any of that. So a lot of the commercial that could come in can't, because we can't support them. The biggest problem we have right now is utilities. These businesses will, and even if we had a research park, which is perfect because that's not going to require all those other things. Even if we had a research park, they're not going to come in and build because they don't have any utilities. They're not going to put a 3 or 4 story office building on a septic tank. It's not going to happen. So that's another battle that we're trying to fight right now. But in the process, this 1,200 acre piece is an assembled one piece that would be perfect for a large commercial complex, some kind of a medical research park, an office complex, corporate headquarters, all that kind of stuff. It would be great. But again, we cannot support them up there without the utilities. So that's something that we're trying. We discussed that quite a bit on the when this came up. My big bugaboo with this, we'll try that a different way, okay? My big problem with this is again, the additional homes and building lots coming into the city that we don't need. Our build out is supposed to be about 450,000 people. This is just going to add more on top of that. And, you know, we're trying to keep up now with the building. You know, our infrastructure can handle it, that we have built, except the utilities. if they move into an area that has utilities, it can handle it. We have plenty reserve in our sewer plants and in our water plants, so that's not an issue. But whenever you add a lot of people, you're adding police officers, you're adding fire people, firemen, you're adding city staff, and you guys are going to pay for all of that. So the people that are moving in, they're going to be paying taxes too, but it never seems to wash evenly. You know, they always seem to cost more than they gain from it. So the upside of this whole thing that I love is I have been very protective of Burnt Store Road. I don't want to see another Pine Island Road going up into Charlotte. I don't want to see another Del Prado. You know, we already have those. There was no control over when they built all those. You know, they just went right down Pine Island Road putting in strip centers. Come on, people. You know, use some imagination. This particular project would probably end up to be a very nice gated condo community or multifamily community. And that would be very nice up there. So, you know, I kind of support it for that, but there's no guarantee that's what they're going to do. You never know what they're going to do. In a lot of cases, they'll get the zoning or the land use they want, and then they'd flip the property and make more money on it. So I don't know. I don't know these people. They didn't. I didn't remember them speaking Monday night. There is an upside. It's not all negative. But like our advisor just mentioned, it's your problem, guys, because we're going to be long gone before they get going on this one. And hopefully a few of you might be sitting on our council. I really hope you will. And these are decisions that you're going to have to make. So just keep your ears open. We'll be discussing it again. I think actually the vote is a week from Monday.
No, you've already voted to transmit.
Transmitted, it's already been
Yeah,
transmitted.
you transmitted up to the state already. State review will
I
conduct.
thought that was an introduction that you did.
No, it was the transmittal.
We did transmittal. Yeah, we did the cow meeting on the 27th of January. We transmitted on Monday, and then you'll have an adoption hearing probably in 30 or 60 days.
We've already voted on that. Well, but anyway, keep your eyes open, keep your ears open. You know, the one thing that I've been kind of planting into you folks is you've got decisions you can be making now that are going to affect you 10 years down the road. This might not be one of them, but like parks, what do you want? What, you know, this type of thing. You already are at a point now that you can be putting input into the city for that stuff. That's what you're here for. And the council listens to you. They don't listen to me, but they listen to you. So that's all I had to say. I'm glad you did this. I think it's excellent. There's always two sides to it. So, welcome to Cape Coral.
Thank you. Yeah, so hearing all the points that have been presented today and throughout this presentation, we definitely can see the pros and cons of either of this development. We do know as of now, or actually we don't know, but it is very likely that this development will occur, correct?
Well, you have a significant financial investment by a group of folks who formed an LLC to purchase it. They are going through the entitlement process with a very highly respected land use attorney, one of the best in Lee County. So I would suspect we will see something as this comes back from the state, and if the state has no objections, which I don't believe they would, they would be brought back in front of city council, then they'll have the land use. And then they'll probably start working with staff and developing. You're going to do this through a PUD?
Yeah, so the applicant has already reached out to us, and they are trying to get a pre-application meeting going for a planned unit development. Staff is sort of approaching it with caution because that utility issue is sort of like the real roadblock to all of this. We're not going to give development approval to a developer unless we know for sure how they're going to get those utilities up to that site. And because of the distance that's there, that's a real hurdle for them. So they may get a concept plan approved there, but they may not get the actual zoning that would allow them to pull permits until they have, really demonstrated to us how they're going to provide utilities to that site. And that is a That's a pretty significant financial contribution that they would have to do because of the distance that from where that site is to the existing utilities now. And it's not just running 2 lines straight north and then connecting it. In order for the utilities to work, you have to sort of loop the utilities around. So you've got to kind of run it, make like a horseshoe with all of the utilities that are out there. So it's not just two straight lines up to the site. It's, you've got to build a network out there so that you have proper water and sewer flow.
So they come through with a PUD. That'll take, I would suspect, with a project this size, probably, if it got done in a year, that would be really good. It means everybody is fairly focused and moving forward. So probably more than a year. And then at that point, they're entitled. And if it's a bubble plan, what do you call it, concept plan? If it's a concept plan, they still have to go another round. So I don't see them doing, but I also know that when you're invested this kind of money, and their representative stood at that podium at the transmittal hearing saying they're fully prepared to bring utilities to the site. And we're talking, millions and millions of dollars to do that. So they have to be substantial. So if you have a group that are making the kind of commitments they're willing to make, you have to take it serious. So I would suspect probably 2 years or so, you'll see what it is they have in mind to build there. And then it'll be for real. Then the votes of city council will be much tougher because it'll be for real. And I represent developers, and I'm telling you that they see their sites unto themselves. They do a financial pro forma for their sites unto itself. They don't see their sites as providing capacity for existing deficits, okay? So they're going to try to push rooftops because rooftops sell.
All right, thank you very much. As of now, seeing as this is all perspective, and it is far into the future, really, the only thing that I take into consideration is the fact that the city itself will need to essentially make accommodations as that population grows, whether it be with utilities, transportation, parks and recreation, whether it be through our general obligation bond that's already working to help with that, or we'll need to come up with something else in the next 15 years. That's really the biggest problem there, correct?
The big issue, what I wanted for you is that the juniors that are here now, when you come back as seniors, you may be at the precipice of the next big step, so you at least will be aware of what's going on here. And then maybe that group will be another set of juniors behind them, and they'll be ready to pick it up for the next group. So just put it on your radar. This is big for the city of Cape Coral.
All right, is there any member discussion? Is there any discussion from advisors? All right, seeing none, we'll be moving on. Thank you very much. We'll be moving on to item 10B, Youth Council Community Service Projects Contest. I'm sorry, I'm updating my... Okay, yes, so it's going to be the community service contest. As outlined in your backup material that was emailed to advisors and council members prior to the meeting, the Youth Council Community Service Contest is being held by the Florida League of Cities in order to showcase community service projects that youth councils have initiated to address a local need. In order to complete the application, we will need a written description in 500 words or less that include why the project was needed in your community, what the project entailed, our objectives, if they were met, and if they were met, we would describe how. It would also include how the project helped residents and how it impacted our youth council. In addition to this, we'll need a letter of recommendations from our mayor, a member of council, or city manager. And the deadline for the entries is March 25th. The winners will be announced in May 2020. The winners of this contest will be showcased on the league's website and social media platforms, will be recognized in press announcements as well as the league's Quality Cities magazine. And in addition to a monetary award of $250 and a trophy with a plaque, will also be recognized at the league's annual conference in August. With that said, I will now hand the floor over to advisors and councils for discussion on whether you would like to participate in this, basically who would like to spearhead this contest if it's something that we would do, and what we should do about it. Is there any discussion? Member Bradish?
I believe this is a great opportunity for us to advertise our Adopt a Road project as well as our bus stop movement, and I would gladly be able to help write it.
Thank you, council member. Is there any member, Mr. Williams?
Your legacy program is perfect for this, the Blessings in a Backpack. You've already generated some pretty decent money. You've already got some pictures and other things that you can show. If you build on that, I think that'll be helpful, unless you can think of something else you'd like to do. But you guys are doing a lot for us, so.
I do believe, in addition to our fall gala, if we had, and this would again be up to the juniors in reality, if we were able to host maybe a smaller fundraiser that didn't put as much work as the fall gala did, but maybe a small fundraiser and kind of have our entire community service project be based around the idea of addressing global hunger in a local way, and kind of having these fundraisers to be like, to back up that claim that we are helping global hunger. I think that would be a prospective project that we could potentially win with. Member Doherty?
I agree with Member Bradish. I don't see why we shouldn't. We should, of course, jump on this opportunity because I think it's a great way, again, to get our name out, but also to show the amazing contributions that we are making back to the city of Cape Coral, but also, again, to stopping the global hunger. I think that's a great opportunity for us to get our name out also and to continue to give back, because doing that small fundraiser that you suggested, I think that's a great way to get additional monetary funds.
Thank you, Member Doherty. Is there any discussion from advisors or council members? All right, so on that topic, I believe, and this goes kind of again with our community service projects, if we are looking at, and we have numerous community service projects that we have conducted over the last year that we could use. If we are looking at the whole global hunger in a local manner direction, which includes our legacy organization, Blessings in a Backpack, which is the one that we've always worked with, and that is our alliance, we can take into consideration maybe having some discussions in the following weeks about how we address that global hunger in a local way. So in addition to doing these fundraisers for Blessings in a Backpack, and we can even plan, again, like I said, a smaller event that could fundraise for Blessings, we can also start looking at maybe having presentations by organizations, not really charities, but organizations that deal with global hunger, and kind of work alongside them and to kind of have that local, global perspective. Is there any discussion on that from council members? Advisors? Member Doherty?
So when is the due date again?
The due date for the essay is March 25th.
And then does this potential fundraiser that we're going to do again, does it need to be done by March 25th? Or is this just a prospective, like this is what we're planning on doing again? Like in addition to the fall gala, we're going to continue working with Blessings in a Backpack by doing this fundraiser, because if we're going to do it before then, I don't think there's going to be a way to get enough money or enough like funds in order to do it by March 25th, just because of everybody's like busy schedule, and it's already like the end of February. So
I do think that our essay would have to be strictly about the gala that we've already done. However, moving forward, it is something that we can keep doing just because of our deadline. Yeah, but actually reaching out to maybe a global organization that works for maybe advocating for global health and having them present at council or something like that might be something that's reachable in the time frame that we have. Member Aiko?
I just think that with the time constraint, like our best bet would be to focus on previous efforts that have already been completed, such as the Fall Gala, Adopt a Road, and we have even, well, actually question, does the community service have to have been conducted this year, or can it be prospective from, because we did do Blessings in a Backpack with our term on council, so we could talk about that too.
Seeing as during Chair Baxter's term, she did win this competition for the Blessings in a Backpack service activity that she conducted, I would advise against using that again, seeing as it's already been presented and it's already won an award. Therefore, presenting it once again would just look like we kind of reused what we've already won for. And we have plenty of material to work with that's been more recent. So that could be something to add on to, kind of like in our application. But I do believe that the center of it should be what we've been doing recently.
Yeah.
Member Doherty?
I think it's important, if we're going to stick with the Blessings in the Backpack, to mention what Member Aiko was talking about, how we previously worked with them. That shows commitment and that we really do care about this issue because we're staying with it so long, and that I feel like if we switch back and if we don't mention that, then it seems kind of like a new thing that we're doing. So it shows that even like throughout this whole entire city council, the formation, we still cared about this issue. And I think the Fall Gala, like there's plenty of it to write about, especially because we already wrote the On the Move article about it. So doing that 250 words shouldn't be a problem at all.
Yeah, and considering, we've already written about it so many times before, and we have all the details. It's fairly recent, even though it was in September, but it was in our term. Therefore, the Fall Gala might be something that we can look into. We did fundraise about $840, I believe it was, or something around that, which is a fairly substantial donation considering it's the first event we've ever held. In addition to that, even at our gala, the excess food that we had, we donated it to the firehouses and the firemen. We donated those decorations back to, and I can actually find the names of them and everything, to different homes for children, like different foster homes for children that help them do homework and stuff like that after school. It's kind of safe spaces for children. And those decorations that we didn't use, or actually all the decorations went back to those foster homes. And with that, they were able to celebrate Christmas and kind of decorate their homes for Christmas. So I think that from every piece of that gala went back to charity, and every single resources that we had, we put it back into our community. So definitely going with how we've been working with this legacy since basically the foundation of our council, and then how we're going to be moving on with that initiative is something that we can definitely do. Is there anybody interested in spearheading the actual description, writing the description, taking care of the application? Member Bradish? All right. So would we have to make a motion to appoint someone to this project?
Without objection.
All right, but I have to ask for a motion, correct?
You can say if there's no objection to Member Braddock, taking the lead on this, then you go there.
All right, so if there's is there any objection to Member Bradish taking lead on the community service contest? All right, seeing none. Member Bradish, we will be sending you, and actually the details about the contest was emailed to you in our backup material, and we will be checking up on the progress before the March 25th deadline, which leaves 2-3 meetings for us, correct?
Correct. So it basically leaves us 5 weeks to complete the project with 2 meetings in between there, February 28th and March 13th.
So by March 13th, is it possible that we can get a finalized copy of that application for the council to review?
Of course, yes.
All right, is there any member discussion? All right. Advisors? Mr. Mazurkowitz?
Yes, Madam Chair. Is it my understanding that you want to do a brand-new project?
No. We will be highlighting our fall gala.
Just highlighting your fall gala? Okay.
Okay.
Okay, that's doable. I just went through the project list again. If you wanted to do something different, that I think you get a big bang for your buck, the bus bench thing would be great. You could talk about integrating with all the other organizations. You could talk about, not only are you providing a service for policing up the areas, you're submitting review material, helping with that's a big project. You're part of a much bigger project. But either way, either of those would work because they're already done. You don't have time to start from scratch, so that's fine. Thank you.
All right. Is there any discussion on whether we should move forward with having the gala be the objective of our contest, or? All right, seeing none, we'll be moving on. Next up is community outreach activity and events continued discussion. The Funmobile schedule for February was emailed to us in our backup material with prospective events coming up that we can participate in. With that said, I will now hand the floor over to Mr. Cagle for any updates.
Well, in regards to the schedule, you're welcome to come to any of the events. We'll provide all the infrastructure, the tables, chairs, anything you need. We have Wi-Fi, so anything you need, the computers, you're welcome to use any of that. So you're welcome to come to any of them, any of our events that we have. And you just let me know, we'll make sure it's set up for you.
Thank you very much. I actually have a question. As for the, because I'm aware that the Parks and Rec has like an after-school program and programs that work with children.
Yes.
Is there an opportunity that we would have to be able, not really set up an entire event, but an opportunity that we can come during one of these after-school activities and kind of give like a mini lesson or an interactive lesson on city government and kind of reach out to that younger population?
You could, just keep in mind, they're very young, elementary age children. So I don't know if they would understand, that. But
Yeah.
I mean, you could, maybe some type of event, but again, they're very young, elementary age. That's what we have in our after-school program.
Okay.
I don't know how effective it would be. But you're welcome
You're
to come and
correct.
do some type of program.
Okay. Member Aiko?
I think this would be a great opportunity to present that book that the fellow from FLC brought to us. Like, especially if that's the population we would be interacting with, that would be a great thing for us to do. And even if we wanted like to do it as soon as possible, like I feel like that could even be something we mention in that letter that we're looking to write. Additionally, I know that Parks and Rec is in charge of the movies at the park because I personally went to one. So I know that relates to one of the, like we were thinking about a group get together. And I just wanted to bring that up as well as an idea that it's a really nice event. It's really nice out on the park at night for a movie. It's nice.
Thank you, Member Aiko. Mr. Cagle?
About doing something? Yeah, you can, absolutely. We can set that up. We have after-school program every day. Starts around, after 3 o'clock, most of the children are there, and they probably start leaving around 5. So probably the ideal time would be between like 3 and 4 if you want to do some type of presentation. If you just send me an email and I can set it up and have everything ready for you. If you needed overhead or PA, whatever you need, we can accommodate that. That'd be great. I think they would like that.
Yeah, because I would love to have a presentation for kind of our younger population, since for the majority of our council, we've kind of focused on reaching kind of the older population of the youth, and we've kind of overlooked the younger population of Cape Coral. However, I do recognize that if they are elementary school age children, it might be a little bit more difficult to keep their attention for the kind of presentation that we would make. And I know it wouldn't be a professional presentation, and it would kind of be a more fun, interactive, very like basic, like local government and how kind of that interaction. However, what do you suggest that we do? Because I do believe that Mr. Salver, his book comes out in maybe April or May, if I'm not mistaken.
The book actually, you guys aren't probably aware, the book actually came out, but we found out last week that they needed to make a revision to it. So the book has been taken out of publication, and we have not heard when the book is going to be put back into publication.
Okay. Okay.
So we're kind of at a standstill with the book.
So if we, and from the previous copy that, because we kind of saw like an overview of what the book had, do you believe if we had like maybe, not like a sit down reading, but kind of an activity with that book, would that be effective for the age that we're looking at?
I think they can learn best kinetically when they're actually doing something, so that we could have you sit down, like whoever would want to do that, with my staff, because we have directors, senior directors that run these programs, so they would have a very good understanding of what would work and what wouldn't, as far as trying to get that message across. So I think to determine what you would want to bring, and then my staff could help you fine tune it so it could be receptive to that age group.
Okay. Okay. Member Doherty?
I know that when I was in 3rd grade, we had a presentation about local government, but at the end of it, like, we did an arts and craft, and I think that if we looked up like different arts and because like that's what I remember more of it. I don't remember necessarily the information that I learned, but I do remember having that arts and crafts as a more of a representation of like what I learned, and having something physical, because it is true that you're not going to be able to get any of these kids' informations with just reading a book. Even they want to do something and they're not going to sit still, so we're going to want to do something, like he said, something hands-on.
All right, so if this is something that the council would like to do, our next step would be setting up a date or kind of a plan for it?
I think the first thing is determine what you want, what is the message that you want to convey. And then I can connect you with one of my staff, and they could work with you on developing how you want to do that message, whether it be a craft or some other type of kinetic learning. And we have a lot of booklets and a lot of activities we do that I'm sure can correlate to what you want, the message you want to get across.
Okay.
So basically just let us know who wants to represent that, and then I'll have them work with my staff.
Okay. Okay. I know I definitely would love to do this. And I think the objective of doing this entire activity would kind of be introducing what we do on the council. So like kind of getting the message out to kids who are 5, 7 years old, that children who are less than 10 years older than them are making these decisions and are helping kind of guide city government, representing the youth in our government, and then as well as kind of helping them understand how their local government works. Because I remember when I was in elementary school, I kind of learned about the president, the Supreme Court, and kind of the House of Representatives, and that's the way that government works. However, I never really learned about local government until I started working with it hands-on, and that might have been around middle school, high school. So kind of introducing that to them.
Madam Chair?
Mr. Williams?
The Readers to Leaders, the book should be out, he's hoping mid-March to beginning of April. They just have to make some graphic changes, nothing real serious. When I was up there, I was in Tallahassee last week, and when I was up there, I talked with them about going out into the schools and suggested that maybe you guys could be doing in the city of Cape Coral, taking the program into the schools. He thought it was a great idea. So he wasn't too high on it to begin with the first time it came up, but after seeing you guys in action, he thinks it's a great idea. Peer teaching is always better than me going in as an example and trying to go over all of this. But we're going to be getting enough. There's a toolkit that goes with it. It's not just a matter of sitting there and reading. So there are things they'll be doing and learning and so forth. I'm going to Trafalgar Elementary toward the end of the month doing the Reading Across America program. And I believe I'm going to be in a 2nd grade class. And after having a conversation with the teacher, she shared that this is the year, 2nd grade, that the schools do start their civics program. So the timing is perfect. She's also talking about bringing all the 2nd grade classes in at one time and doing them big mass teaching. But I think it's something you'd have a lot of fun doing, and I know you guys do a great job at it. And being on the youth council, that will be its own subject, because that's not covered in this Readers to Leaders program. So it'll be something that the kids can, it's not going to be way off in the distance. I mean, if I go in there, they're going to say, oh God, it's going to be 90 years before I can get into doing that stuff. But you guys, you know, you're a few years older, well, hey, there's something I can get going on. So I will continue to pursue that, and I mean, if you guys have interest in that, we can do that. Maybe the first couple of times we'll go out as teams and see what we can do to get it going. But it's a good program, and he's very high on it. So, and that could be a good contest thing too, if you need more. But thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Is there any member discussion? Member Logan?
I fully support going into elementary school classrooms and reading and doing activities and such. Last year when I was in the Cape Coral Chamber of Commerce junior leadership program, we went into a middle school actually, and we were talking to 7th, 8th graders about we were talking to them about going into high school, getting ready, what do you expect and such. And I think that's a great idea, going into elementary schools and just giving them that opportunity to talk to us about things. I mean, I know they're younger, but I mean, most of us here, we will be able to play around with the kids, be able to read with them, say like, oh, this is how this works, and maybe try giving them some advice for middle school, because we all lived through it. Most of us here went to middle school in Cape Coral, so I think that would be an amazing opportunity for both the council and elementary school students.
You guys might be best in the middle schools. I think that's the age group you'd probably be best with. This program, it goes all the way from K to 12. I don't think you want to go in and teach your, seniors and juniors, but the middle school, I think, is about the right age where they would respect what you're doing and understand what you're doing. I don't know. I mean, these are things that we'll just have to try and see how it all works out. But
oh, pardon to interrupt, but my National Honor Society next in 2 weeks, we actually are going into Calusa Middle School, and we're going to be doing a little class where we discuss the importance of taking your FSA seriously, such as the English FSA, because a lot of students, especially on the lower 50% of the school, they don't really take the test seriously because they believe, oh, whatever, I'll just take it again next year. When in reality, that is very important, and those better tests, the better scores you get, the better classes you get to take in high school, going straight into high school. And those classes you take freshman year are going to determine how you do the rest of high school, or if you're not playing catch up. And that even determines your college. So it's very important to take FSAs and such seriously. So I will definitely try discussing with the teachers and principals there at Calusa Middle when my National Honor Society is there in the next 2 weeks.
this is also going to start forming a connection with you guys and the students in these various schools. And that's very important for the goal that we have, getting things done. Anyway, thank you. I don't want to take any more time. We're going to run short on time here pretty quick.
Yeah, we have 16 minutes to kind of wrap up.
You lost your quorum, so you're not going to be able to take any more votes.
Yes, so everything is just going to have to be discussion. Oh, and we can't even vote on the recognition program.
Oh, the quorum's gone.
So we can't vote on our recognition program. All right.
Madam Chair, because of Member Russell having to leave, losing the quorum means you take no more official business. I think if anyone has any issues they want to discuss at this point, they can. But to be honest with you, legally, the meeting's over.
Yes. All right. Do I move on to item 11? If there's no
you can
discussion?
talk about item 11. You could talk about if anyone has any, information they want to share in their reports, and then.
Okay. Is there any discussion from council? All right, seeing none. Item 11, next meeting agenda topics, and since we can't do a vote, it will be consensus. All right. Topics to consider for our next meeting. Can I have a motion?
No motions, just one with it.
You're right.
Any objections to?
Any objections to adding the HUD? Just kidding, that's gonna be in a long time. The Youth Council social event continued discussion, environmental topic discussion, the after-school youth presentation discussion, to the next meeting's agenda, because that's, yeah.
You're going to take the, did you mention the environmental issues?
Yeah, the environmental topic. I mentioned item 10E, item 10F, and I added the after-school youth presentation topic.
All right, and D, right, you have to do D.
Oh, D as well.
So D, E, F, and the new issue.
And the
Any
new issue.
objections to those
Any
four?
objections? All right, seeing none, we will be moving on. Item 12, reports. Are there any reports from council members? Member Igo?
As we have been talking about the bus stop movement for a while now, I had a report. I did compose a list of the 5 stops within half-a-mile radius from Cape Coral High School. So what I'm looking to do next with this is promote this to NHS and any other community outreach clubs that we have going on at our school. And I'm just really excited because it took so long to be able to get this information, and now we can actually be proactive within Cape Coral High School. So yes.
Thank you, Member Igo. And actually, at our school, as of now, the French National Honor Society is participating on this, so that's just one more. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And I can email this to the whole council, just so we're all on the same page that this is Cape Coral High School's member representatives. This is what we are maintaining, so that's for us to take care of.
Thank you. Any other reports or discussions? Member Ms. Griglin?
I do have a report if nobody else does.
Oh, I have a report?
No, I do have a report.
Oh, yeah, okay. Ms. Griglin.
Thank you, Chair Benitez. Couple things. We wanted to let all of you know that we are sending out applications for the incoming junior vacancies. They have gone out to all the schools. If you would like a hard copy, I believe Ms. Castile has one. If you know of anyone particular that you want to distribute it to, or if there is a counselor or administrator that we might have missed, by all means, please let us know. Second of all, I sent out emails once again regarding the bus stop benches. I keep getting questions as to which benches we're doing, but I currently only have 3 maps that I can go by. So I need everybody to send not only in that original map with the circles, but then we also want to do the report style that Member Ziegler had presented to us. Because it is very difficult, if we're going to have all these circles on a map, to know exactly the destination points that you guys are cleaning the benches at. Because also then we also, as Mr. Mazurkowitz had said, we want to be able to present this to the Rotary Club and City Council so that they know exactly which benches you are doing. I know another member had emailed me with concerns that there are no benches around their particular school. Once again, in that situation, I would just suggest going to other areas maybe that don't have the high schools and choosing benches in that area. I know it's not ideal because you may not be able to do it like around the school or walk to the school, but unfortunately if there are no benches around your particular high school, there's nothing else I could really do, unfortunately, but to ask you to, go beyond that boundary area. Okay. Any questions?
Thank you. Oh, I actually do have a question. Mr. Solver, I guess that would be my report. I recently wrote a thank you letter to Mr. Solver.
I sent it out to everybody today.
Yeah, and that should be in your backup material or emailed to you. So, yeah. Yeah, because it's already written, so.
Yeah, it's in everybody's email. It went out today.
Okay, is there any member discussion? Member German?
I don't have a report, but I would like to congratulate Member Logan for the acceptance into the United States Military Academy at West Point.
And actually, as of senior business, I know in the past we haven't, and I spoke to previous chairs about this. I know in the past we haven't had, so at our graduations, a lot of our schools allow us to have pins and cords and tassels for the clubs and the extracurriculars that we participate in. Is there an opportunity that the youth council would kind of be able to have one of these tassels or cords or something? Because essentially this is like for our memories, as well as for people to look at it and to kind of be like, oh, she was on the youth council, and kind of something like that.
I think it's up to you guys.
Member
Well,
Doherty?
no, if you want, it would be nice to know if you had to have a cord, or you could do with a pin,
Yeah.
or what.
Because I know that there's already a Cape Coral actual like pin. I know that they gave me one. So like, and I feel like you're only allowed to wear one cord actually on graduation. So the pins I think are going to be more important for you guys. So I think a pin would be, and it's also like more feasible. So
Yeah.
the pin.
And I do believe we already do have pins. Yeah.
You have youth
Okay.
council pins?
I think so. Well, we don't have youth council pins, but like the city
You have the city Cape
council.
Coral pin, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was
So we
going
could
for.
have
Or
that.
you could actually add to that and do the 50th anniversary pin. Pins are easy. Cords are going to take
A little bit more.
a little bit more.
Yeah. And actually, I didn't know that we were only allowed to have just one.
Well, I think no matter what you wear, or whether it's a pin or a cord, I believe the school district has to approve what you wear at graduation. So you may be getting into something. Why don't you, I mean, it's a cool idea. Why don't you talk to your administration and see what they think about it? And I'm sure if any one administration goes for it, I think the others will. So if someone, see if you can do it, and we could definitely make one of the pins or both of the pins available to you all as you graduate.
Okay. Okay. So that's something that we can talk to our administrators about. Member Logan?
I was just going to discuss about this. At least at Island Coast High School, the administration is very tough on what you can and cannot wear at graduation. In previous years, people have gotten in big trouble for wearing things for clubs that were not authorized, because they do have to print them out on pamphlets that say what is what for wearing, such as NHS wears this or SGA wears that cord. So this is definitely something that we're going to have to get onto right now if we want to be able to do it at graduation, because chances are, let's say if we did end up going with a cord, I mean, the pin idea is a great idea, but let's say we did go with a cord, that would be something we'd have to get through right now.
Yeah. I do believe, honestly, looking at our options, I do think a pin would be the most feasible, just because of all our school regulations. And I've actually heard that a lot of schools aren't even allowing cords anymore. So, and we already have pins. So.
Well, do some investigation, make sure you're not going to get anybody in trouble, and make a decision so you all can be wearing the same thing.
It would be every single council member from the different schools going to their admin and asking them, or usually there's a counselor who's in charge of graduation who would be able to take care of that.
Okay. Is there any member discussion? All right, seeing none. Time and place of future meetings. The next meeting of the Cape Coral Youth Council is scheduled for Friday, February 28th at 3 p.m. in council chambers. Without objections, we will now adjourn the meeting.